Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Let's talk about the energy story. And I'm talking about it because I just had an intellectually nutrient-rich discussion with Josh. Runs a great Substack called Josh Off the Press. One of these people who's a regular person, teaches middle school English, 8th grade of all grades, but manages to make it work and has carved out a niche for himself. After some experience. So sharing these experiences is really the key to a lot of what we try to do as people and as educators. So I want to talk about, and I call this the energy story just for that reason, because the energy story is, in my opinion, the investing story of our time. And I know that sounds grandiose, but let me explain what I'm talking about. I'll give you two metaphors that you need to remember. One of them is tobacco. In the 90s, you had Big Tobacco. This is R.J. Reynolds. You had Altria, I think it maybe became. You had some other companies that were huge, olden days, Lorillard, tobacco manufacturers, and they got sued into oblivion. And so what happened was there's a gigantic lawsuit, and the tobacco companies took huge social and financial losses. And there were rules on about what they could do in terms of advertising and putting the I was going to say benefits of their product. You know, advertising is big, and so they couldn't advertise. They were limited in a huge manner as to what they could do as companies. So they were limited in advertising and distribution and all kinds of stuff. And so what that did was the companies that were left, again, I mentioned them before, Altria, R.J. Reynolds, there's another one that's escaping my mind right now. What it did was it put a moat around those companies. So if you were an existing tobacco company at the time, and there were, 4 majors at the most, probably 2 or 3, what it meant was that everybody who smokes, and there were millions, had to buy from those companies. No new tobacco companies coming up. Nothing new in the tobacco space. And did you know that if you invested in big tobacco in the mid to late 90s, and you held on to what you had for 10 to 20 years, you outperformed not only the indexes, not only S&P and Dow Jones, you outperformed every sector on the market. I'm going to say that again. If you invested in tobacco after the lawsuits, you made a huge amount of money, compounding earnings after year after year after year. Tobacco, yeah. Cigarettes. Go behind my back. You look it up. It's unbelievable, right? So think about that. That moat built around the big tobacco companies. And so you had a limited number of firms, and everyone had to buy from those companies. And if you're an investor, they're earning a huge amount, and so are you. As the stock price rises, probably dividends. I have to check those kinds of details. The other one is Cuba. And I'm stealing this metaphor, shamelessly stealing it, but it works. 1959, progress stopped in Cuba because of various reasons. The main one is communism, which is a great evil, right? You're not an individual in a communist socialist world. You're a cog in a large machine, and your job is to shut up, keep your head down, and work harder for the party. That may hurt your feelings because you're a leftist. Oh, well, that's how it is. Sorry. So in Cuba, time and progress, in effect, stopped. So if you had a 1959 powder blue, tail-finned Chevy, you're the only game in town. A moat built around Cuba, right? Because you know, no big corporations coming in. the government owns everything. So if you have a company, why would you go to Cuba for a market? There is no market. You go to Cuba and the government owns you. What fun of it? What fun is that? So the energy sector is the 1959 powder blue tail fin Chevy. So because you're now the only game in town, right? The moat, the barrier between new cars, new innovation, new technology is blocking all of that. Energy is the same way. It's big tobacco in 1998. It's a 1959 Chevy or a Nash Rambler or an old Ford with the goofy colors and the chrome. So energy is the same way. So if you're looking at oil, and I want you to think about this. Who's starting anything new in the oil world? If you ask our government, we're going to be running the economy on batteries and unicorn farts by 2030, right? Net zero by 2030. Or sorry, 2050. I can't keep track of what the latest one is. Pure nonsense. Physically impossible. I'm going to say that again. Physically impossible to do batteries. So no one is building new stuff. Who's opening up a new offshore drill rig? The answer is nobody. I'm going to give you a little example. There's a company called Transocean. Stock ticker symbol is RIG. And they've got a lot of offshore rigs, oil rigs. And there's a whole bunch of them sitting idle. They're cold stacked. They're not doing anything. It's going to cost $300 million to get that thing rolling again. Why would they open it? First of all, the government's threatening every oil company with jail, which happened 2 years ago. The feeling or zeitgeist around oil is it's terrible and horrible, like tobacco, right? Oh my God, oil, it's so dirty. Let me crazy glue my hand to the runway and stop traffic. Okay, all this stuff. So these people are not stupid. They're actually quite bright. So they're not, I'll use rig as an example. Transocean is not reopening those rigs, which means that there's a limited amount of oil that's going to be produced by Transocean, which is just one company, and they are going to make a mint. They are it's not the greatest company in the world. They're laden with debt, but they're printing money, as is Exxon, as is your boy Warren Buffett, right? The Oracle of Omaha. Oh, he lives in the same house. He's such a peaceful man. He's a shark. Why do you think he's invested in oil and railroads, right? So let's say it like it is. You know what I mean? Let's talk about it the way it really is. And so what happened was that he has been able to read the tea leaves, and he's investing in what will make him money. So Occidental Petroleum is what your boy Buffett bought. So the concept is there when it comes to hydrocarbons, particularly offshore oil. I'm talking Rig, Marathon, which I think just got bought, Occidental, Exxon, Petrobras. I play games with Petrobras, buying and selling and options and what have you. They're the Brazilian giant. So there's Valaris. There's a lot of companies out there that are in the position now to be big tobacco. Now I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'm gonna be crying, right? You're gonna see me sobbing on these things, right? Saying whoopsies. Okay, I don't think I'm wrong, but it's possible, because the same thing goes for uranium. For whatever reason, even though nuclear power is wonderful and incredible, for various reasons, there's a moat around uranium, and a bigger moat now with this foolishness in Russia and Ukraine, because those companies are huge producers of uranium and enriched uranium. So now there's a bigger moat around uranium, and the nuclear power companies, they just buy uranium. They don't shoot for the lowest price. They don't try to finagle and cut corners. The operating cost of a reactor, the actual fuel, is a small percentage. The uranium market itself is very small. So you can catch something, if you wish, with the uranium market and be behind the moat. Be behind everyone else, because A, they're not paying attention to uranium. The companies have to buy uranium. Nuclear is starting to have a little bit of a renaissance, and there's a limited amount coming on, and there's no uranium left in storage. So this is the energy story. And if you'll notice, and I'll leave you with this, because this is the way I talk with students and like-minded people, and even people who are not like-minded but intellectually curious. I want you to think about how the global warming, climate change language has changed. That group of people, the WEF, the Becky that lives down the street that has the Prius, good car, by the way, Prius. It's the all-battery Teslas that are the problem. Right, those people, you know, they don't have as much clout. They don't have as much pull. If you'll notice, the power elite, you don't have the same kind of vigor behind that. People are starting to realize that you can't have batteries and electrify everything and get rid of oil. Like, none of these things are possible. Physically, it's just physics. A platitude, this is as Doomberg says, Doomberg's a great Substack, platitudes will lose to physics. To do what they want to do, you, and I mean you need to go without electricity, probably 6 hours a day, 300 days a year. Are you willing to do that? I mean, off, blackout, to do what they want to do. There's just not enough grid. There's not enough power generation, especially with wind and solar. It's just not possible. Is that going to happen? You're going to tell all, and think of the bad neighborhoods, right? You're going to tell the Mount Vernons, you're going to tell the black neighborhood, no power. And then how about the hospitals and the freezers and the grocery store? You see where I'm going with this? It's just not there. It's not possible. So the energy story is an interesting one. And I'm 3 years in. The easy money, right? Because again, as I talked to you about, the narrative has changed. I got in when the narrative was still mental. Some of it was during the pandemic. And the narrative was like, oh, now we're not going to need oil again, right? Ever, because of a virus. Okay. So the narrative has changed, if you'll notice. It's physically impossible, but the moats around these industries are still there. And that's why bend over and pick a $100 bill out of the gutter. Those days are over, right? My 158% on Paladin Energy. I'm probably not going to get 158% again. Like, on top of that, my 600% return on Athabasca Oil, I doubt that's happening again. My mistake was not taking a bigger cut, taking a bigger swipe. Okay, you learn. But that's still there. And so that's the energy story. That's why I talk about it so much. And that's where I am philosophically in terms of investing, and might help to dip a toe in the water and see what you got. All right, I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.